So anyway, the chapter 2.7, doing the linear inequalities, it's basically graphing but with a twist at the end. And I think you guys already know exactly what that twist is. If I give you something like y equals 2x minus 3, bear in mind this is an equal sign. This is something that we did yesterday. It's old, but old stuff's always good stuff because it gives us something to compare it to. And I like to compare things. So I'm going to start at negative 3 because that's where our y-intercept is. I'm going to move up 2 and to the right 1 because that's what my slope is telling me. I now have a straight enough line, right, that looks kind of like that. The only thing that's different about today is if I gave you y equals, say, oh, so not y equals, what am I thinking? Y is less than the same equation, 2x minus 3. I'm going to graph it exactly the same way, except there are two twists on this problem. One, it's how that line is formed. Two, there's going to be one more maneuver that I do at the end that's going to complete this problem. Does anyone remember what this is going to be? Mr. President!
So you're going to have to start off and then you're going to put a few test points.
Okay. Something a little simpler. Let's take it one thing at a time first. Aaron, what kind of line am I going to have?
For this certain equation, it's going to be a dotted line.
It's going to be a dotted line.
But
Please.
If it was,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
If it was less than and equal to, then it would be a solid line.
A solid line, exactly. Now, remember, well, we'll go over that in a second. Okay, now, Mr. President, you talked about test points and stuff like that. Do you guys really do test points?
No.
Okay, how do you determine whether you're shading above or below the line?
You plug in 0, 0, if the line is 0.
Okay, yeah, I used to do test points also. The way I do it is I actually just kind of read it. If y, now y, the letter y, which axis is that? Is that up and down or is that side to side? It's up and down, right? So basically, there's only two ways this thing can be shaded. Either above the line or below the line, right? So let's read this. If y is less than this thing, and this thing is the dotted line, let's use some sense here for a second. If y is less than that, where should I logically be shading? Above the line or below the line? Jared? Gotta be below the line. Does that make sense, Mr. President? Yeah, rather than wasting your time with a test point, it's like just if this y is below this function, we're going to be shading below it. If it's above it, we got to be shading above it. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's do some clarification here. The types of lines that we have is dependent upon the type of inequality we have. So if we have greater than or less than, that will lead to a dotted line. And that is depicted by this dotted line. If I have less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, that is going to lead into a solid line. And I hope this is kind of reviewish for you guys. And a solid line looks like that. So why don't I give you guys, it seems like you guys already know what you're doing, so let's give you two on your own to do. Let's just start off with number one. If I give you, say, y is greater than or equal to, say, 2x plus 5, go ahead and graph and shade that one. 2, I threw a little bit of a twist in there. It's going to be 2x minus 5y is less than 20. Now, with number 2, there's a little bit of a twist. You might want to convert it. Give it a shot. Okie dokie, let's go. We've got this thing here. It is, so there's something about this graph that makes me cringe. And I'll tell you what it is. I have a certain disdain for graphs that are positive here and positive here. I don't know why. Because I want it to like be up high, but I also want to have the space to move it. So I don't know. Whenever I make a problem like this, and I'm like, oh man, I hate when that happens. So from here, I have to move up 2 into the right 1, right? So I hate being off the graph. So that's just kind of a little quirk about me. Yeah, Jessica Bradshaw, what's up? Yeah, but I'm stubborn. I don't want to do that. Okay, what kind of line do I have here? Solid or dotted? Jessica Bradshaw. Got to be solid. Okay, close enough. Above or below the line? Am I above or below? What do you think? Matthew, am I above or below the line? Got to be above because y is greater than. Raise your hands if you got number 1 correct. Piece of cake. Number 2, let's go ahead and convert this thing. Negative 5y is less than all this stuff here. I'm going to divide by a negative, which means what's going to happen? Oops, that's definitely not going to happen. What's going to happen? Jared.
What's going to happen?
I divided by a negative, so keep in mind your rules on inequalities. What's going to happen?
It's going to be flipped.
Gotta flip this thing. I hope no one forgot that. Raise your hands if you forgot to flip the thing. Yeah, those rules come back, okay? They never go away. So, let's go ahead. That's okay. That's why we do it now. When I was training in Kung Fu, we used to say, better you make a mistake during practice than at the tournament. Tournament for you guys is on Friday. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 4, up 2. 1, 2 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I forgot to make this dot right here. I am making a dotted line because I am not less than or greater than or equal to. And since I'm greater than, yet again, where am I shading? Above, right? Raise your hands if you got number 2 correct. Good. All right, any questions on this? Okay, couple of things, because I know that sometimes this stuff can throw people off. Funny thing about students, and particularly students that I tend to have, is that I show them all the complicated stuff, and darn it, I show them all the complicated stuff, and then when they get to something simple, they're like, wait a second, how do you do that again? So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. If I give you, say, number 3 here, and I make it y is greater than 3, okay, bear in mind that there's no x happening here, right? So whenever you have y equals some kind of flat number like that, what type of line does that produce? What type of line does it produce? Jared? Well, not no slope. It has a slope of what? 0. It has a slope of 0. So in this case, I have a dotted line passing through 3. And since y is greater than, which way am I going to be shading? Robert, which way am I going to be shading if I am above? Which way am I going? Above. Okay, sorry about that. Kind of gave away the ending of the movie there. Okay, next one. If I give you, say, x is less than or equal to negative 2, what type of line is this? X equals number. What type of line is it? Serena, what type of line is x equals number? Okay, well, they're all straight. I don't. It's not dotted. Okay, well, this one's definitely not dotted, but what type of line is it? It has a very distinct kind of name. Yes, an undefined slope. And what type of line is produced by an undefined slope? Vertical. Vertical crossing at negative 2. Okay, now here's where the whole shading above below kind of gets a little tricky, because there is no above or below this thing, right? However, use some common sense. If x is less than all of this, is it to the left or is it to the right? Got to be to the left. Questions on this? Because that's the only thing they can really do besides this. They might give you something like x minus 4 is less than or equal to 3, and they might ask you to graph it. Well, that, number 5, looks similar to number 4, except there's just one more layer of stuff to do before you get there. That requires you to add 4 to both sides, so x is less than 7. And so now you just have to go over to 7. 5, 6, 7. Draw your vertical line straight down, and if x is less than, we're still shading to the left. Okay, you see how they added just that one last layer of stuff to do before you got there? If I say y plus 1 is less than 5, what do I need to do before I graph this thing? Joshua, what do I need to do before I graph number 6? Subtract 1. Y is less than 4, so you have your graph that is up 4, it's a dotted line, and it's shaded below. Yeah? We good, everyone? Cool. Aaron, is that your hand up or
no,
scratching your head? No problem. Interesting. Okay, let's see here. Let's keep going. Actually, no, let's not, because that's the end of this lesson.